Hey there, I just got back from my favorite yearly conference, FinCon, and I am still buzzing with ideas, follow-ups, and processes I can't wait to implement. Coming down from that conference high and getting back to real life, kids, soccer, and meal planning can be a bit of a jolt. But here's what's nagging at me. Don't let that excitement, those connections, and those ideas fade away. At a conference, it's all about business and connection. There are no daily distractions, just meetups, random hallway introductions you didn't know you needed, and amazing, rich conversations. The energy is contagious, and so many potential leads and partnerships come to life. But here's the reality. Most of us get back and dive right into regular life, and all those great contacts and ideas end up on the back burner. That stops here. Today, I'm sharing some simple processes to help you keep in touch with the people you meet at conferences using, you guessed it, your content. With, of course, a lean toward podcasting and YouTube videos. I'll give you several memorable follow-up techniques and easy acronyms to make the steps easy to remember. And here's a tip. Share this episode with your admin or VA or integrator. I'm all about outsourcing because proper follow-up takes time and thoughtfulness. After you've both listened to this episode, you can discuss which steps will make a difference for your business. Then your team can help keep the follow-up going strong and probably handle it a little better than you could alone. Let's talk about one of the most effective ways to turn those conference connections into true collaborators. By inviting them to be a guest on your podcast. This approach lets you nurture relationships, showcase their expertise, and even attract new listeners who follow your guest right now. Here's how to do it in 3 simple steps using the ICE method. I is for identify, C is for craft, and E is for engage. Starting with I. You're going to identify high potential guests. After a conference, sift through your new connections and choose contacts with the best alignment to your audience's interests. Look for those who you had valuable conversations with, who are well respected in your field, and who share insights that complement your podcast's themes and purpose. Here's an action step. Set a timer for 15 minutes or so to review your conference notes. List anywhere between 2 and 10 contacts who stand out in your mind, noting what they could bring to your show. This helps you focus on guests who are actually going to bring value. Once you've identified those contacts that you think would make great guests, restart your timer. During the next 15 minutes, note what topic or angle each of these people would bring to your audience. Okay, so that was I for identify in the acronym ICE on how to use your podcast to turn those conference connections into true collaborators. Next is C. You're going to craft a compelling invitation. Now that you know who to invite, make your message count. Keep it brief, warm, and reference your shared conference experience. In this step, use those notes you made next to those 2 to 10 people's names and actually reach out to them. Send those emails. Here's a step-by-step outline for your invitation message. Start with a reminder. Hey, Sam. I really enjoyed our conversation about website traffic and affiliate links at FinCon. Then highlight the mutual value. For example, I'd love to have you on my podcast to dive deeper into how your website makes money. My listeners would learn so much from your expertise on SEO. Finally, offer flexibility. We can keep it to about 30 minutes and focus on what you're most passionate about right now. That rounds out your email. So the C is for craft your compelling invitation. Next is the E in the acronym ICE. We did identify, craft, and now you're going to engage. In this step, you're focused on connection and collaboration with this new conference buddy you made. Once they accept, it's all about creating a smooth, engaging experience with your guest. Use this time to deepen your relationship. Here's how to set the stage for a successful podcast guest appearance. First, research their recent projects or posts or their favorite topics to show that you actually care about what they care about. Then send a pre-interview outline with topics or questions to help them get ready. Then, once you're online together, start with relatable questions like, what were your top takeaways from the conference? How have you been since I last saw you? By inviting conference contacts to be podcast guests, you're creating valuable content together and laying the groundwork for a meaningful professional relationship. It's a win-win. They get exposure and you build a richer, more collaborative network. This approach not only keeps you top of mind, but it also establishes authority for you in this space. Okay, so you've invited a few contacts onto your podcast, and that's a great start. In the next section, we'll talk about how to use your podcast episodes as a natural follow-up tool, including tips on repurposing episode content and keeping the conversation going with online connections after the conference. Turning conference contacts into lasting connections takes more than just connecting on social media and maybe liking someone's posts. Let's use your podcast to stay on their radar in a helpful and genuine way. Remember the acronym CUE, C-U-E, create, utilize, engage. The C is for creating content that resonates with their pain points. One of the most effective ways to nurture a relationship is by creating content that speaks directly to them. Think about the casual hallway conversations or the shared coffee chats. What issues came up that you could actually help with? Here's your action step. Pick one or two themes that came up at the conference. Maybe it was navigating compliance or tips for getting a book published. Make an episode that shares strategies, insights, or stories around that topic. Then, when you reach out to share it with those contacts, they'll feel like you really listened and are here to help. Okay, so that's C for create. Next in our acronym is U. Utilize resource sharing emails. In other words, share. Once you've published an episode relevant to their needs, you need to send it to them. This email should be more than just a link drop. Frame it as a resource share to keep the conversation going. Send a message like this. Hey, Tracy. I remember our chat about compliance challenges during FinCon. I just released a podcast episode with some actionable tips that might be helpful for you and your team. This type of email shows you're thinking about them beyond the event and that you're a resource, not just a connection. Yes, it takes a bit more effort, but even one or two of these emails a week can make a big difference. If you have a team, consider setting up a process so they can help you with this follow-through. So, in our acronym Q, which is helping us use podcast episodes to nurture those conference connections, C was to create content that will help your conference connections. U was utilize resource sharing emails. And now E is all about engagement. In this section, I want you to repurpose those podcast episodes you made into short clips. Think Reels or YouTube Shorts, but I also have clients where we clip several 5-minute topic-specific sections out of their longer form YouTube videos. Short clips from your episodes keep the content and you top of mind. Share quick, impactful snippets on LinkedIn or even directly via email to just keep the conversation going. Here's how to put it into action. Pick 2 to 3 powerful moments from each of your episodes and turn them into short clips. I hope you're doing this for Instagram anyways. Then send a quick note to your friend that says, hey, here's a little clip from my recent episode. I remember we were talking about SEO for podcasts, and I hope it helps. This is a nice thing to do, and it doesn't require them to commit to your full episode. So by using Q, this will help you turn those conference connections into a supportive network, and your podcast will become a meaningful way to nurture those relationships. But we're not done yet. You need to know how to keep that engagement going long term, since you might not see these people for another year until the next event, right? So you've made a great first impression at the conference, maybe even had some of those connections on your podcast. Now, to keep the momentum going, here's another simple acronym to remember. ART, A-R-T, because maintaining a genuine connection with so many people over time really is an art. A is for anchor. Use a quarterly check-in with your podcast as the anchor. Schedule a quarterly touch point to just maintain engagement over time. You can do this by sharing one of your most popular recent episodes or a best of episode that covers several valuable insights, like all in one chunk. And here's the key. Keep their topic or interests at the forefront of your conversation. Here's how I plan to do it, and you can totally copy me if you need a framework. Each quarter, send an email or a LinkedIn message that says something like, hey, it's been a while since we connected. I thought you might enjoy this episode on self-doubt, as it has some great insights into getting paid speaking opportunities. Are you still pursuing the stage? This approach helps keep the relationship active and shows that you remember the topic over which you originally connected. Okay. So that was A for anchor. Do this quarterly connection method using your podcast content as the anchor. R is for relevant. Share relevant episodes with personalized notes. One of the easiest ways to stay on your contact's radar is by sharing podcast episodes that are tailored to their interests, and then drafting a quick message to them with a fitting episode shows that you're paying attention and ready to be a resource. Try something like this. Hey, Sarah. Our conversation at FinCon came to mind when this episode went live. How have things developed since we last spoke? Rounding out our acronym ART to help us effectively and efficiently use podcasting to maintain long-term engagement with these conference buddies. A was for anchor, R is for relevant, and T is for trending. I want you to intentionally create follow-up episodes around trending topics. These trending topics are things that people were talking about and what you heard attendees buzzing about at the conference. Bring that into a solo episode or a conference recap or even interviews where you can share how this topic has developed since the conference. Then share this episode with those new connections as a way to continue that conversation and show that you're staying current. With art, anchor, relevant, and trending, You'll nurture these connections authentically, creating a long-term impact with your podcast. So, there you have it. 3 practical ways to use your podcast to nurture long-term relationships with your conference contacts. By sharing relevant episodes, creating content around topics they care about, and using quarterly check-ins, you'll stay top of mind and maintain meaningful engagement well beyond that initial meetup. To quickly recap from beginning to end, we used the acronym ICE to help you pull conference contacts into your ecosystem as potential collaborators by inviting them to guest on your podcast. I stood for identify high-value guests. C stood for craft a compelling invitation. And E stands for engage for collaboration and communication. Next, we reviewed how to use podcast episodes to nurture those friendships you just made at conference. Remember the acronym Q for this. C is for creating content that resonates with their needs. U is for utilizing resource sharing messages. And E is for engage, using shorts and clips so you stay fresh in their minds. And finally, since it's probably going to be another year before you see these folks again, we discussed how to keep in touch, offer value, and truly help over the long term with quarterly check-ins and follow-up episodes on relevant and trending topics. The acronym there was ART. Use your podcast as your anchor content. Share relevant episodes with these connections and intentionally create follow-up episodes around trending topics. Everybody take a deep breath with me here. Post-conference excitement and overwhelm are both very real. You've come back with so many new ideas, and yes, I just gave you a plan to follow up with possibly hundreds of people. But remember, you don't have to tackle all of this in a day. Here's how to start. Look at your podcast schedule to see where you can work in a few of these episode suggestions. Review your past episodes to see if there are any that are just already a natural fit for follow-ups. Decide which steps we just talked about make the most sense for you in your business. Then bring in support. Share this episode with your VA or integrator and have them help create a simple process. If you're serious about staying connected with a large group, do not try to do it solo. With that, I leave you with luck, well wishes, and if I saw you at FinCon, I am so glad I did. If we didn't see each other in person, well, we just have a little less than a year to get to know each other online and look forward to meeting at the next event. All of the acronyms and steps to each section are described briefly in the description below. Plus, there are blog posts now up on podcastabundance.com to help you walk through these awesomely helpful conference follow-up steps. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or via email if you have any questions. I am quite happy to help. Have a good one.